Hey guys, this video is about some really basic concepts of functions, including a definition and a few of examples about how to really do the front side of your second page in the workbook or in your summer packet. So just real brief, a function is an equation, is a set of points, is a situation where every input has one and only one output. And we actually got into more detail during the year about what a one-to-one function might be. But for right now, your summer packet is dealing with just functions. So every input, in most cases, we're going to say this is x values, is equal and has only one output. And your outputs are either represented as y's or your output is represented as f of x. So one of those two things. Anyway, your first three problems on there, do that in graphical form. So I'm going to show you a couple graphs. If you have, I don't know, a graph that looks like this, and there's only 3 points on this graph. Every endpoint, like you've got an input of -2 here, which gives you an output of -2. You get an input, your x value is 2, which actually gives you, an x value of 1 would also give you an output of 1. This x value of 1, 2, 3, looks like my numbers are just a little bit off on this, gives you an output of -1. And you can see that every input has exactly one output. And we talked about a way that's the most common way to solve when you have a graph, and we said it's the vertical line test. So as I use my function finder and move across the screen, I could see that every point is the only point that touches this pencil. And I'm going to show you an example of a graph in which that wouldn't be the case. So if you saw a graph that looks something like this, and I tried my vertical line test, right here, that line, this pencil represents the line, touches this function, or we're testing to see if it is a function, this graph twice. So just to give you an example, this input of 0 would have two outputs. One looks to be about -2, and the input of 0 would also have to be about 1, I don't know, maybe 2.2. And we see that in this case, my input of 0 gives me more than one output, which brings me to 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I'm actually going to put 4 on here really quick. And I'm going to talk through, I don't know, let us look at 7. So on 7, we see the input of 1 gives you a 7. As long as I have no other 1s, we're good. The input of 2 gives me a 5. The input of 3 gives me a 6. And the input of 2 gives me a 4. And there we have a situation where we have the same input and different outputs. Now, I want to circle these two and show you what that would be on a graph. So I'm going to assume 1, 7 would be somewhere up here. 2, 5 would be right about here. 3, 6, and again, these numbers are taken off the problem that we just did with just numerical form. And there was also one that was 2, 4. Well, if I graph that, we could see that when I do my vertical line test, it doesn't pass the vertical line test because that vertical line touches both of those points. So in a situation like this, right, these two numbers is what makes this not a function, and we can see that two inputs or the same input gives me different outputs. And I'm just going to represent this as a graphic form as well so you can see just why that vertical line test works. There's a couple others on here. I'm going to leave 9 and 10 for you to figure out because I don't want to give you one of the examples, but they're asking you to fill in this sheet this with a number here, so you're going to go A and you're going to make it a function, right? So I don't want to copy these inputs, and then we're going to make it not a function, so I'm going to have to pick an input and give it a different output, an input that already exists and give it a different output. Finally, and I'm going to do this right on the sheet, right? They're asking us to solve with a given input. So I'm going to do this first one right here. I'm going to say f of -4, and I'm just going to write it right here. So if I plug in a -4 instead of an x, make sure you put your parentheses in. -4 squared, that's -x squared, so I'm plugging a -4 in. Notice that there's two negatives here, -4 squared plus 5 times negative 4 minus 10. I'm going to drop this negative down, and this negative 4 squared, so that one drops down. This negative 4 squared is positive 16, but it comes down to meet with that negative. 5 times negative 4 is negative 20, and I drop down my negative 10. And I'm just going to add these negatives across, and f of negative 4 is equal to, well, these guys make negative 36, and that makes negative 46. And that would be my solution for that one. And there's a few others. And this should be enough to get you through this page. I want to make another video right now, just talk about linear equations. Good luck with this, guys.